What's up, guys? We are back with another Mythic Legions Poxxus Wave review, and we're taking a look at one of the brute scale figures today. We're taking a look at THARNOG. So this is our Orc Shaman figure, which, quite honestly, this is one of my most anticipated figures for this wave. I'm a big Orc fan. I love the Shaman aspect for this figure, and I'm very, very interested in seeing where the brute body is going. So there's a lot of new with this figure. Now, he is a larger scale figure because he's on that newer size body. He comes in a box rather than your standard Legions packaging. So you got him there in the window. We've got our sort of good guy artwork for this particular wave. So this wraps around from front to the back, and it has a Rakagor on the back of it. We've got our faction card, we've got our bio, and then you've got cross-sell for the larger scale figures in this wave on the back, along with our write-up for Mythos. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Mythic Legions Poxxus Wave THARNOG. So we've got our Orc Shaman brute scale figure, which for me is a lot of things that I'm really curious about and really interested in. Mostly this body though, right? Because we've heard about brute scale for forever at this point, that it's coming, we're going to see more figures on that body style. We've had a taste of it, and we're finally getting, a little bit more with the Poxxus Wave finally. And I mean, at face value, I'm very, very happy with the way this turned out. It's still a 1.0 figure, but it feels newer, if that makes any sense. It's smooth, everything moves really, really well. And in general, this may very well be one of, if not the best figures in the wave for me. There is a lot about this one that's really doing it for me. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. We got a head sculpt that can look up really good, and as I'm sure you can expect, he cannot look down at all because he has this super, super long beard. You do have some tilt. You got rotation, but the beard is going to be the sticking point for this figure when it comes to articulation. I should also note, of course, that he is very much naked right now. He does have a lot of other stuff that we can put on him, but I wanted to show how the body moves without anything getting in the way. Arms out at the shoulders, everything again, very, very smooth. I'm not having any issues with stuck joints on this figure or even it fighting back. It wants to move. We've got single jointed swiveling elbow, 90 degrees. You got your gauntlet swivel. We've got swivel and hinge at those wrists. So, normal stuff. If you've messed with a 1.0 figure, you know what's going on here. Torso goes backwards, forwards, tilt side to side. You got your swivel point up there as well. Legs go out pretty much all the way. They kick forward, but the cod piece is going to get in the way. There is a lot of plastic there. Kick backwards. You've got your thigh twist up there, nicely hidden as usual. And then you've got your single jointed swiveling knee. So it gives you some swivel at the knee. And then you've got your swivel at the ankle as usual. And then you've got your rocker down here also. And you've got your hinges. Hinges are really, really nice on this guy. So he moves... he moves just like any other 1.0 figure. The only real difference is that it's new, but it's still very much the same style of figure. So if you're familiar with the older style articulation for the single torso piece figures, you're not going to be surprised by what he can or can't do here. Though I have to stress the fact that he does move very, very fluidly. I haven't had any issues with him. He feels new. It's hard to describe, but he feels like a newer figure that just has a little bit more ease of use when it comes to posing this guy around. Now, as far as the overall look and feel on this figure, I'm quite certain that that's the main focus for this guy, not just because it's Mythic Legions and that's definitely part of the allure, but because he is so different. Not even because he's a brute scale figure. He's very much just a unique type of thing in the line, and even within this very magic-heavy wave, he's still very different from the other figures here. So we've got a lot of different stuff going on, despite the fact that it's still a very familiar thing. He's still an orc, he's a green skin character, but he's a brute scale. So that means he's, like 10-ish% roughly, maybe something like that, bigger overall. That's not just a height thing, it's like a volumetric thing. So it's the law of cubes. So he's going to get bigger in every area, which means the arms are a little bit bigger, the torso's a little bit bigger, the legs feel a little bit bigger. There's a lot of little things that make him larger overall, which add to like a more looming sort of presence. This, again, is also what he's going to look like when you take all the stuff off of him. So when he doesn't have the pauldrons on, when he doesn't have the fur, because that stuff absolutely kind of obfuscates the figure itself. He hides behind a lot of the stuff that he wears, including this giant codpiece. There's a lot of stuff on this figure that really hammer home the shaman side of things, but when you take it all off, he's still just a big orc. The beard is going to be the one thing that's, a little bit difficult to maybe get rid of if you're doing customs right now because it's part of the head. But I absolutely love this figure. I think he is so well executed just from top to bottom, even like this, even at kind of his bare bones sort of loadout right now. I think he looks amazing. He's slightly larger, he's thicker, he's chunkier. I love this color on the green for the skin, the shading. There's tons and tons of little detail all over the skin on this figure too. So there is a lot of tiny little texture. You've got your, big muscular vascularity kind of going on with this figure, as is the case for Legions. We got style posy hands. We've got big bare feet. He's got wraps for the wrists and the ankles. So there's a lot of stuff here that you can use elsewhere on other figures. The codpiece, that loincloth, super, super detailed. Tons of intricate paintwork and sculpt, a lot of bone, like these are like big jaw bones. You've got an actual cattle skull. He's got a bag. He's got little, baubles and things like that. Tons of paint, tons of sculpt, so much detail crammed into this belt. He's got the fur loincloth piece that I absolutely love. This type of fur, when it comes to Legions, I really like. This is the one I always think about is the Cassia cape. It's very much like that, and it looks really good from front to back on this big guy. It definitely makes him, look less naked as a result, obviously, but I do like that. I'm very happy with it. And then he has this awesome head sculpt. We do get an extra one that we'll talk about, but this default head I think is just tremendous. I love the beard with all the little adornments in there, like the bones and the beard, or the beads, and then you've got that feather as well. So there's little bits and pieces just to break it up, so it's just not this long, stringy beard, but there's some more, tribalistic kind of things here. I also really like all of these tusks and the horns, even the ones that seem to be coming out of like the bottom of his ears. That's really cool. It's different, not something I've kind of thought about myself. And then he also has this sort of grizzled old expression. He looks like an older orc to me. So I do really like that as well, just to make him even more unique, really, because this figure is so, so different from top to bottom. But if you're an orc fan, there's a lot of potential here just with his base form. And then when you add all the shaman stuff on top of it, this figure really just becomes something so much different. So there's a lot of cool stuff here. Visually speaking, I think it's one of the coolest figures we've gotten in quite a while. And then just in terms of sculpt and paintwork, it's everything you want it to be in a Legions figure. Now, as far as accessories goes, this is where the figure gets elevated for me. He is tremendous, just basically naked, right? There's a lot of cool stuff with this figure that's just new and different and refreshing. But then you bolt all this shaman stuff on him, and he's so much cooler to me. Like, this is such a fun idea for the figure, for something different when it comes to magic users, for something different when it comes to orcs. So you've got these monster, and I can't stress this enough, monster pauldrons. Like, these are enormous and definitely bulk him up, make him seem even bigger than he already is. So they're these very, very shamanistic, very tribal in nature, like leather style pauldrons or some sort of hide of some kind. They're asymmetrical, they have bones on them, and they're just different in terms of how they're cobbled together. Of course, they also have these massive antlers as a part of them, so that's kind of a big aspect. They are removable, just like, any other big adornment to a piece. It's going to have to come off. It's going to have to be a separate piece. So you've got these big antlers. If you want to use them, use them. If you don't. They'll be hidden if they're not on there because the holes are in the back. So you do have a couple options. Maybe you don't want him to be so tall, but they absolutely elevate this figure quite literally to make him seem even larger. And then you've got this fur as well. And this fur might be the one thing I'm not the biggest fan of, because I'm not a big fan of this fur type. I like the stuff around the waist more so than I like this piece, but you don't have to use it either. It is also on, I believe, backwards right now. I prefer it this way, so you could flip it around. And then you've got these long pieces that'll hang down the front. I just think it sort of obscures the figure a little bit too much. So I like it like this in comparison. It does bulk him up, and it adds a bit of collar around the head as well. It makes him seem really big and beefy, but I'm very happy with it overall. I'm just not the biggest fan of this fur. I might cut it down a little bit, cut some of this out because it's a little bit tall. But otherwise, it's a really cool addition to this figure and really hammers home the shaman thing. He does come with even more stuff, though. We get some hands. Hands are a big aspect for this figure, one in particular. So he's got style posy hands on him. We've got a set of gripping hands. And then you get one sort of magic hand, and it's not part of this effect. The effect is actually sculpted around this hand, so you can take this sort of scrying orb or, little smoke effect thing, a little bauble off of it if you want to give him that hand. And it sits on here really, really well. It's a very tight fit. It's definitely meant for this kind of hand. But this is really cool, and it's a very unique thing. And it seems very shaman-y to me also, so that definitely works. Really happy with that. I mean, this is the magic wave for sure, so of course he gets a magic effect. He also gets an extra head sculpt. And it's the same head, like this is exactly the same thing, but the paint is obviously different. And this changes, I think, the demeanor of the character a bit also. He looks a little bit meaner here, and I'm really happy with this one. I think this is probably my preference of the two, but they are, I mean, they're the exact same thing, but they look great. Really happy with the way this one turned out. That pop of white just kind of changes him up for the better, I think. And then the last thing we get is what I guess we would consider his weapon, but it's just, you know, his major accessory. So he has this really awesome staff, and I can't stress this enough. Like, this guy probably has some of the coolest stuff in the entire wave for me. So I'm really happy with this one. This is sort of our standard staff right here. So this can come off. And then you've got this piece up here with, you know, very much a tribal kind of theme going. So there's some gnarled branches. There's a human-looking skull. There's some sort of a cattle skull, feathers, all sorts of stuff. A lot of very, you know, very tribalistic, natural type of things that are in here. And it just looks so good. It's also really big as well. It's obviously quite large compared to the figure, which is bigger than an average figure. So there's a lot of staff here, basically. And in general, he comes with just a tremendous array of stuff that really, really pushes home the idea of what he is within the confines of the lore. And I really am happy with just about every damn thing he comes with from start to finish. And now that he's fully kitted out and we've got him dressed, let's do the size comparisons to show exactly how big he looks when he has everything on. Because of course the antlers and the pauldrons do make a difference for this guy. So to start with, we've got a regular 1.0 orc here on the left. This is the Colosseum wave orc, I believe. And then we've got a Rakagor from the Poxxus wave for an ogre scale figure. And you can see, obviously he's not an ogre scale size figure, but he's much bigger proportionally than your regular legions. He's a good head taller, and everything else is just beefier as a result. So they are going to add some variation on your shelf if you go with a handful of these brute scale figures. Now let's do some other lines. Let's do figure arts. Here is Superhero Piccolo. Let's do Mezco. Here is the, well, it's always going to be Mezconan. Let's pull Piccolo aside, and here is, just for some Hasbro representation, there is Marvel Legends Banshee. And let's do another 7-inch scale figure. So here is Super 7 Ultimates. Here's Shredder. And then let's do one more. Here is from the Frazetta Icon Collectibles line. There is our Fire and Ice Dark Wolf. So as you can see, this guy is pretty big. Again, he's not super huge. He's not massive by any means, but he is proportionally larger than all your regular 1.0 legions and should add, you know, a little bit of variation on your shelf once we get more of this body style. So yeah, overall, I am really happy with THARNOG. This figure is so well done, really from top to bottom. This new body, this new style feels really, really well done. Everything moves very fluidly and very smooth. He's just big enough to add a little bit more shelf presence, add some variation on your shelf. Not to mention the fact all of the shamanistic aspects of this figure are incredibly well done. I love the beard, I love the head sculpt. Despite the limitations to articulation, the head sculpt and the beard are really cool. The pauldrons are probably some of the best in the line, period. The magic effect is really well done, the belt is really good. And even if you don't want to go that route, you can just make this into a big orc also. So there's a lot of possibilities, and it really shows us where this body style and size can go in the line. So that's going to do it for this look at the Mythic Legion's Poxxus Wave THARNOG. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.